Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great week thus far. I know down here in Southern Ontario, the weather's been rather nice of late, and that's a good thing. Government's starting to ease up on some of the traction that they've had a hold on there with all this COVID-19 thing. Things are starting to open up, and the sun is starting to shine bright. So let's hope that continues on. Everybody's staying safe and healthy, and let's keep this roller coaster ride going so that we can all get out there. My name is Dennis, and the channel is Canoehound Adventures, and you're watching Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show. This is number 37 in the series of episodes, and we got a great show for you lined up tonight. Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show is a show that brings you a lot closer to the great outdoors. It's a show that brings you closer to YouTube content creators that you enjoy and watch, and the outdoor topics that you guys all enjoy, and gals, of course. We're here live every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We got this show and one more, which will be our season finale to close up season 1 until September. But let's make a good one of this one here for sure. With that being said, next Tuesday, no show. This guy is going to the backcountry. I'm finally going to get out there and do myself a nice solo canoe trip, something that's long overdue. And probably it seems a lot more long just because of the COVID thing. But yeah, I'm going camping next week. No show, but the following show, which will be the season finale, will be the week after. So make sure you're around for that one there, because we're going to be doing some great giveaways and things like that. And I'll tell you how you can get in on those giveaways in just a moment here. Right now, I'm just going to ask if you could take a moment, if you have the opportunity, try and share this out maybe on your social media, whether Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, maybe the community tab over on your YouTube channel, just to get a few more people in here, because tonight's guest is more than worthy of having many, many guests in here to watch and hear his story and get to know a little bit more about him. And as usual, I'd like to hear your feedback after the show or during, in the comments, whatever it is. Leave me a message. Drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. Message me on Facebook at Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you have any ideas for upcoming guests or anything like that, I'm starting to build on my guest library for next season. So if you have anybody you would like to see on the show, by all means, please do let me know, because I'll try to make that happen. I mentioned giveaways on the show, the finale in 2 weeks' time, which would be on the 23rd. If you are a Canoehound adventurer, and what that is if you've joined the membership section of Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show, or down below you'll see a join button. We'll be giving away, one lucky winner is going to win a nice Canoehound Outdoor Adventures show shirt, a nice hat, and a sticker pack. But in order to win, you have to be a member of the channel. Just one of the perks that goes along with being a channel member. So check it out down there. Don't have to do it right now, but at some point there, if you check out the join section, got a few different levels on there, all with different perks. Gives you some cool emojis that you could use in the chat and things like that. So check it out if you get the opportunity. And while I'm on members right now, I'm just going to shout out all the members that we currently have here, just to say thank you, because your support is greatly appreciated. We've got Doug Cleland, we got Derek LaPointe, Get Her Done Granny, Dan Schultz Outdoors, Everything Spicy, Nate Muskoka, Beastly Ironworks, Ari Rosen, Brandon Cosman, Crazy Ann, I always trip over this one, Aeronomy, or there's an Aaron and Me. I think it's Aaron and Me. Avid Outdoorsy Guy, Ride Paddle Repeat, and Sty North. Thanks so much to all of you for support. It's greatly appreciated. And who knows, you might be the winner of the Canoehound Adventures prize pack in 2 weeks' time. So good luck to y'all. Just about to get into our guest here, but everybody knows that this is a very interactive live stream. If you have any questions for myself, or mostly my guest, make sure you do ask. We'll get your questions up on screen the best we can. But to make the questions more noticeable to me in the chat is if you put a letter Q in capital letters before your question, then I recognize it as a question and we'll get that up on screen. So without further ado, let's get right into our guest here. Tonight's guest is an avid outdoorsman from Northern Ontario. Let's see here. I got to find this intro here. Time to laugh at Canoehound. I got too many pages going here. There we go. Tonight's guest is an avid outdoorsman from Northern Ontario. He has a popular YouTube channel that is full of how-to videos, tons of dehydrated food recipes, and plenty of backcountry canoe and hiking videos. Please welcome to the live stream tonight, Kevin Ride from Kevin Outdoors. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, Dennis. How's it going? Good. How are you, Dennis?
Good, man. Thanks for joining me on the show tonight.
Yeah, no problem. The weather's beautiful here as well.
Yeah. What are your temps like up there right now?
Today was 21, just a perfect day.
Perfect. That's awesome. I think we're experiencing a bit of a heat wave down here in Niagara. So yeah, let's take it as we can get it, right?
Yeah.
Very excited to have you on the show because of late I've been watching a lot of your videos. Mostly the how-tos and the cooking things. Like, you know, all your dehydrated. You've got like a great library of dehydrated meal recipes. You've got great how-to videos on making stoves, how to use bear sprays, hanging sacks, and the list goes on, right? So, how did you get started with all this stuff?
Oh, you know, I've been camping for a long time, and I went on a canoe trip with my family, and I used to take a lot of pictures on those trips. And a buddy of mine suggested to me, and he was a YouTuber. He had a channel, still does. His channel is Winter Trekker. He goes by the nickname Hoop online, and he's a friend of mine. He said, you know, on that little camera of yours, that new camera that you bought, because this was, you know, 10 years ago or so when digital was just starting to become popular. So you got a little red button on that camera. Why don't you use that instead of the main trigger? And why don't you shoot your trip? So I did that, and I shot my little family canoe trip, little 3-night canoe trip with the kids to Quetico, and stitched it together and put it online. And I didn't do anything after that for like 2 years. I didn't make another video. I just left that there, and I shared it with family and friends. And before you know it, 5,000 people had watched it. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So I started making more videos, and it just took off from there. But yeah, I didn't intend to be a YouTuber. I made one video, threw it up, and let it sit there for 2 years before I made another one. But now I'm into it full steam.
It's funny how that happens. I kind of did the same thing. My first bunch of videos, or my first video, which was back in 2013, and I did it, and then I just sort of sat there, and then I did a bunch more, and then I decided to get rid of YouTube. Deleted my videos. Okay. How foolhardy was that, right? Except for a couple that I still had kicking around, but that really hurt because I lost a lot of really good footage that I thought I still had on my computers, and no. At least I haven't been able to find it to this date, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kevin. What makes you tick?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the eastern townships of Quebec, a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, and got into canoeing and camping as a young kid. I was really involved in scouts and summer camps. I went to summer camp quite a few years in a row, and did a lot of trips with scouts, and really got into. I don't do a lot of bushcrafty stuff on my channel, but I sort of grew out of that phase. But when I was a kid, lashing and tying knots and all that kind of stuff, building fires, that was a lot of fun for me. So that was a natural progression. And later I got into forestry. I came up north here in Thunder Bay to go to university and study forestry, and did my degree, then did a master's degree here. And I did go away for a little bit. I went to New Brunswick for about a year, and I came right back to here. And started working in natural resources and planning, and ever since. And of course, if you live here, I live literally an hour and a half away from Quetico, so flat water paddling is the thing to do. So really got into that, and hiking as well. There's some great trails here along the coast of Lake Superior, and bringing a video camera just seems to make sense.
I guess being up in the area that you live in, it's hard to not be an outdoorsman, right?
Yeah, if there are city people who live in Thunder Bay, but they don't get out very much. But yeah, if you live in Thunder Bay, you really should be an outdoors person, at least fishing or something. We've got great opportunities here year round.
That's awesome. So I already see a cool comment here from Pine Martin. That's a good friend Martin here. He's already talking about your bear spray, and those videos are very, very useful. Well, we'll touch on that in a bit. We'll talk about. I know the one video I just recently watched yours was your Ursac testing. You've also got the air spray and how to use it properly and stuff like that. Where do you get your knowledge to learn all this stuff? Like how have you been learning this stuff? Is it just through picking it up?
Well, so some of it comes from way back when. Like I just did a video on how to hang a bear bag, and then I got a question from a viewer said, "Well, how do you keep your rope from getting tangled?" And I had to think about it for a minute, and I went, "Oh yeah, I did a bunch of things before I threw that rope that I didn't show in the video." And so I did a video on that subject, and that's a thing that I picked up in Scouts when I was a kid: how to coil a rope so you can throw it and it doesn't tangle. The bear subject. I've been working in natural resources for quite a while. In my earlier days, I did a lot of field work, ran into a lot of bears. Have some bear stories from camping with bears. I've got some friends. If you work in natural resources, you have friends that work in natural resources, and I actually know quite a few people that have had very negative encounters. In one of my bear videos, I put a link to some of the news stories about those folks. Some of them have had very, very serious encounters. So a lot of it comes from those experiences and training that I've had. And when I do a bear video, I do a lot of research with it as well. I try and read a lot and make sure that what I'm putting out is a good quality product. The bear one in particular, like that bear video now, it's only been up for less than a year. It had a slow growth, and then it just took off, and it's approaching 500,000 views in just a couple months.
Good for you.
And thanks. I'm pretty proud of that. That's one I knew. I found a niche. There's tons of people talking about bears, but a lot of people don't know what they're talking about, or they're just talking about what kind of caliber of rifle to shoot them with, that kind of thing. But I found a niche. There's no one talking knowledgeably and incredibly about how to deal with problem bears and bear behavior, and so I decided to make a few videos in that theme, and they're quite popular, so I'm happy about that.
That's cool. Yeah, it's always nice when you can touch on one video and it takes off for you. It really helps drive up your subscribership and makes you know or feel like you've done something worthwhile, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've already got people telling me that they're using it for their training sessions. Mining companies or logging companies are using that video, which is up on YouTube. And that main one isn't even monetized. That one is just there. I borrowed some video from other sources, and I'm not able to monetize it, but it's there for people to use and review.
Very good, very good. So who do you watch on YouTube? Who's on there? You mentioned Winter Trekker. But who else do you watch, or who do you follow and enjoy?
Yeah, well, you interviewed him a little while ago, Sean Emery, or Shug, as he's known. He's another guy that kind of got me into this because a friend of mine said, "Oh, you gotta." I wasn't really into YouTube either as a producer or as a watcher, and then I was encouraged to go check out Shug's channel, and that sort of clued me into what YouTube is about. The whole spirit of it. Like he's an entertainer. He does camping, he does hiking, but he does his own thing, and that's what it's about. And you don't have to be Robert Redford. You don't have to be anybody you don't want to be. You just be yourself and get on and do your own thing. Share your knowledge, share your fun. If there's people that like that, they'll share in it. If not, they can go watch something else.
Yeah, I'll go on record as to say that Shug was a fun guest to have on the show, and I was really honored by having him on the show, and I was really surprised to see that he had mentioned to me that he had never been interviewed on a YouTube video before. He's always done his thing on his end, but he had never been a guest on the video, and I was kind of honored that I got to be one of his first. I popped his YouTube. His YouTube cherry, I guess you could say here, right, for the interview session. So that was fun.
And I just want to say, Dennis, like I feel just as honored. Thanks for having me, because especially now with COVID, like this is a great thing. Like what you're doing here is fantastic. You're sharing the community, and you're getting the community together, and we're all participating, and that's cool. It's pretty cool in non-COVID times, but now that we're all kind of isolated and stuff. What you're doing is just fantastic. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. Like every guest that comes on, it's an honor to have everybody on, right? Because let's face it, you don't know me from Adam, right? So, the fact that you put the trust in to come on the show, and it's fun, I get to meet people like yourself, and I get to learn more about. Everybody I interview I'm a fan of their channel as well, right? So it's as much for me to learn out of as it is for everybody else to learn from this whole interview thing, right? So it's
Cool.
Because God knows I'm not the best speaker in the world, so I'm still working on that.
You do a fine job.
Let's see here. Yeah, well, thanks. Okay, so on your channel, I want to get into the food dehydrating and the recipes. I run a small questionnaire on my community page just to see, and I've been doing that of late, just asking a question on there and seeing what kind of results I can get on there or questions to be answered. And the question was, what type of camping meals do you tend to bring on a camping trip? And I give them the choice of mostly fresh meals, home dehydrated meals, store-bought freeze-dried meals, or all of the above. And interestingly enough, it was pretty even all the way across the board. We had 22% of people said mostly fresh meals, 19% said home dehydrated meals, 22% said store-bought freeze-dried, and 36% said all of the above. So I was really expecting a lot more of like the dehydrated or the store-bought, because let's face it, fresh stuff is really heavy to carry usually, right? And but yeah, that there I thought was pretty interesting. Thanks to everybody who actually piped in on that survey. Makes the surveys kind of fun, right? But with that being said, you seem to be a dehydrated food chef. Let's talk about that.
Thanks. I try.
Yeah.
I guess I got into that, and I think your survey speaks to it. If you're someone who just brings fresh stuff, you're limited as to how long you can go and how far you can go. It's heavy and it doesn't last. An onion or a lemon might last about a week. Maybe carrots and potatoes similar, but and rice and stuff, no problem. But the longer you go in the backcountry, the more fresh food becomes an impediment. So I think what you're seeing there is maybe about a third of those folks aren't actually going for a backcountry trip. They're going for a front country trip where they're camping a couple nights and coming out. And so that, for me, that's how I got into dehydrated food. Mountain House, when I started doing this stuff, Mountain House had come out. There was a few meals. I've tried them. I didn't really like them that much. They can be salty. They can also be the wrong size for people. So, you cook your meal and you got leftovers. What do you do with it on a trip? It's wet, it's heavy. So as I started doing longer trips, I started dehydrating my own food and picked up a few things from some friends here and there and made simple meals. Some of the meals I bring are still pretty simple, but when you're on a trip, one of the great things is to, especially if you're on a trip with somebody else, is to share a really cool meal with them and surprise them with what's possible. So that's kind of been part of a driver for me every time I go camping, is try and bring a different meal or cook in a different way or bake some bread or something, right? And so yeah, I've got a bit of a diversity of meals now that I'm pretty proud of, and as we discussed earlier, working on the cookbook as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll touch on that in a second, but I want to actually talk about a couple of your recipes, because a couple of them are like pretty intense. The one I'm looking forward to trying is your lasagna. That whole lasagna, and everything's made from scratch. Well, with the exception of the
I try and do it from scratch as much as possible. You don't have to. There's shortcuts you can take, and that's acceptable. I'm not a purist, but I do try and make it from scratch as much as possible. Make the sauce, cook the noodles, dehydrate all the components, and that one I do buy some freeze-dried cheese to go with it. Some freeze-dried mozzarella cheese, and I'll bring some fresh Parmesan to scrape on top. And that meal's a winner. If you're having a rough day in the backcountry, you've paddled 8 hours and it's raining and you just set up your tent and it was wet from the night before and all that, you have that meal and that just changes your whole outlook on things. And If you're with a group of people, that really makes a big difference.
Yeah. And where does one find dehydrated cheese, mozzarella cheese? I looked all over Amazon for it. I did all kinds
Oh,
of
really?
searches. I couldn't find dehydrated cheese anywhere.
Okay. Well, a freeze dried
Or
cheese, yeah.
freeze dried, sorry, yeah.
You can find it on Amazon. It's there. There's a few makers in Canada. I can't remember their names. Maybe I'll send it to you later, and you can put the link below if people are interested. But
Yeah, that would be a
yeah,
good
there's
idea.
yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Like a lot of love went into that. I'm a real big fan of the Mountain House lasagna. I think it's probably one of their best ones, right? But to spend $11 or $12 on a meal that you can make like a little bit of time, right? You put that love into it, and you got all the fresh ingredients in there and stuff. You know, you had ricotta cheese in there, 1% ricotta cheese, and was it ricotta? Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm making myself hungry just talking about your recipe right now.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I get so many great compliments from folks that try it, and they tell me it changes how they go camping. So I'm really happy about that. That's part of doing it.
Yeah, but not every meal has to be a complex meal either, right? Like, you know, the typical chili or spaghetti and meat sauce is just as popular as, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you made a good point about the cost. You know, even the meals that you do, like Mountain House or other brands, like you said, I think you quoted $11, $10, $11. That's usually what they cost, sometimes more for one serving. Maybe that bag will serve two people, depending on which one you get. Over the course of a 2-week trip, that's an awful lot of money spent on the food. So yeah, if you can do that, that was another motivator. I was a student when I started getting into this, and I bought a dehydrator for like $70, and the meals that you make are pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm. And here we go. We got a question about what kind of dehydrator do you recommend? Do you have a recommendation?
Sure, I do. I've had a Nesco for quite a while. I forget the size of it. I think they've got funny names, ND-70 or whatever. I've got a video about that if someone wants to see. I find the Nescos for the value, because they are about $60-$70, and they do a fantastic job. They have a thermostat. I recommend if you get a dehydrator, get one with a thermostat, so you can dehydrate food at different temperatures. Meats you want to dehydrate much hotter than vegetables and fruits. So you want that flexibility. You'll get a better quality out of it. So make sure you get one that has a thermostat. And then capacity, you want one that's big enough. I tend to do big batches because I don't want to cook a meal, dehydrate it. There I got one meal. I just spent how many hours. I'll do a big batch, and then I'll get 6 or 7 meals out of that batch for tripping later. I also have an Excalibur, and Excaliburs are really good. They're much more pricey than the Nescos. They're quite good, but they're only marginally better than the Nescos. So if money's no issue, get an Excalibur. If you're on a budget, as most people are, get a Nesco.
Yeah, I've just got a cheapie. I've got a Hamilton Beach. That's why a second ago I stretched my neck because my food dehydrator is quite literally right there, and it's actually got leftover spaghetti from last night on there. So I had to shut it off before the show, otherwise you guys wouldn't hear me because the thing sounds like a jet taking off, right? So, but yeah, I guess my first dehydrator was, remember they used to have those commercials for Mr. Popeil, and he was right. He's like the infomercial guy, and he had this big round thing. Yeah. All it had was a heating element, and it used natural heat convection. It had no fans, no temperature control or nothing, and it would take like 2 days to dehydrate food, right? Whereas this one here takes like 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, depends, right? On the
yeah. Another recommendation I have for anyone who's into camping and looking to dehydrate food is to get something that has a fruit roll tray. So the Nescos have fruit roll trays. You can usually buy them after you buy the dehydrator. And I think those are excellent because camping meals tend to be you tend to gravitate towards soups and stews and wet kind of ingredient sauces. A lot of people buy a dehydrator just for gardening. They're going to slice some tomatoes, and you don't need the fruit roll trays for that. But if you're camping, you're going to tend to have wetter meals, and so it makes sense to get something that has a fruit roll tray.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what? The one I got only come with one, so I end up having to use parchment paper to
Yeah,
separate so nothing drips through, right? But
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't mind. I should contact the manufacturer to see if I can actually pick up a couple more of the trays because they're just so much easier.
yeah. They are. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So do you remember what the first recipe is you ever tried on a dehydrator?
Uh, One of the older ones I have is called beef and rice. It's just ground beef and rice and some vegetables, and it's a. I usually put some diced tomatoes in and some spinach, and I that's probably my oldest like complete recipe, and it's something I make. Comes on almost all my trips now.
Hmm. So would that be one of your favorites, or you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite.
No.
I'm always trying to make something new and different, so I don't really have a favorite. That would be up there though for sure. Lasagna
Mhm.
is up there. Um, my soba noodle meal is up there too. Those are three that I will frequently bring one or all of those on a trip.
Right. Right. And when it comes to portion sizes, now I know when you're packaging, you tend to shoot for about the 150 gram mark, right?
Yeah, that's a really hard day's work. So at dinner, yeah. So when I was younger, 150 grams after hard days. I'm starting to tend towards smaller meals. My wife, who's a smaller woman, she's in the 100-gram range. So I find that once you dial in on what you use, like I just make the meal and dehydrate it, and then I'll weigh that amount dried. I'll portion it out somewhere between 100 grams and 150 is where most people are going to be. I'm probably about 130 now. My wife is at 100. And so if you go by that rule of thumb, you're going to be able to dial in and not have waste at the end of your meal. I've been to campsites where you get there and obviously they cooked way too much before you got there, whatever party stayed the night before, and there's a mess in the lake or something, and that's not cool. So that's another advantage to making your own. You can dial in on exactly how much you bring.
Yeah, I never have to worry about the waste. I have a Springer Spaniel that will eat anything.
Okay, there you go.
Ollie will eat any leftovers that are left over. Doesn't matter what it is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
when I was watching your videos and I'm looking at the 150 gram, right? And then a couple weeks back, I was making a bunch of shepherd's pies, and I was like dehydrating it, right? And I'm portioning everything out, all the veggies and the ground beef or the you know all the ingredients. And at 150 grams, I just looked at it and said, that can't be enough for me. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
It just doesn't seem like
yeah,
so much because all that moisture's gone, and it really, especially when you free or
yeah,
shrink wrap it, right? Or vacuum
yeah.
seal.
Most meals, most foods, when you dehydrate them, you're going, about 80% of that meal is moisture. So you dehydrate that, you're bringing only 20% of the weight and volume, and it's a huge savings.
Yeah. Yeah, and another good thing too, and I don't know, do you do this? I purchased a bunch of those oxygen absorbers, and when I'm
Yeah,
vacuum sealing, just like they do in like Mountain House and all them things, I throw one of them in there, right, to keep the moisture
yeah.
or the the oxygen out of the bag, and I think it'll help preserve it for a longer period of time. Those things are
It will
pretty
for
amazing.
sure.
Yeah, I put them
Yeah,
inside of like I got this package of like 500, right? And I take that package and I take out what I want, then I re-vacuum seal that package so they're not functioning, right? And I
yeah,
take the ones I take out and I'll keep them stored in a canning jar. Those things will actually seal the canning jar. Like
yeah, yeah,
you get the pop
yeah,
out of them, and it's kind of
yeah.
freaky
Right
because
on.
like, what's that? You know what I mean? And it's your
Yeah.
but it's a good idea, I think, to throw one or two of those in there just to make the food last a lot longer. Have you ever been reluctant on dehydrating a meal and then out in the field going, yeah, I wonder if this really is good? Like, have you ever had that worry?
I haven't. I haven't. I've been pretty lucky. Uh, that's one question I get asked an awful lot is how long will a meal last, and it all depends on how you store it, as you're discussing with the oxygen absorber,
Hmm.
how well you dehydrate it. If you leave a bit of moisture in there, it will go bad on you. How well you remove the fat. You've really you cannot dehydrate fat. It doesn't dehydrate, so it'll go rancid. So you need to remove as much fat as possible. So you do those things. You store it well in a cool, dry place. You seal it in a airtight container of some sort. An oxygen absorber will extend the life. Um, I often keep my meals in the freezer. I just throw them in there and forget about them essentially. And I've used meals that were 3 years old out of the freezer. They're dry, they're frozen, they come out, and they're just like the day you put them in there.
Hmm.
So I've never had a problem. I've gone. My longest trips are in the 2 week range, and I've never had a problem on a trip.
Good stuff. The reason why I brought that up is because years ago, we went family camping and I made gravel, right? And then the wife used it in tomato
Yeah.
sauce, right? And I don't know if it was that, but I'll tell you, I got some bad food poisoning, right? The
Oh,
wife seems to
oh,
think it was in the gravel. So I made some there a few weeks back and she's like, "You're going to trust that stuff?" And it's like, "Oh, don't talk to me about that. You're going to ruin this for me, right?" So you got to put it out of your mind, right? Uh, Okay, so where to go here? Matt Hahn, who is the producer of Mark in the Park, is asking, is it best to vacuum seal or just toss it in a Ziploc? He's heard that vacuum packaging beef can pop the bag because it's so hard.
yeah, vacuum. Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. Yeah, for sure. Vacuum sealing is better. You get a better seal on the meal. Ziplocs. I use Ziplocs all the time for week-long trips or whatever, no problem. But they aren't actually as airtight as they seem. So you're going to get a little bit of air leaking. So vacuum sealing is better. But the problem you have, as the question points out, is food that you dehydrate gets really sharp. Uh,
Hmm.
Hamburger becomes very sharp, rice becomes very sharp, and you'll puncture your bag. So I will either double line that bag with something. I will often use parchment paper, just a couple layers of parchment paper, make a little pocket, and then put my meal in that, and then vacuum seal it. And that usually works. When I first bought my vacuum sealer, 10 years ago or whatever, I bought a bunch of bags with it. Those bags were perfect. I vacuum seal, 20 meals, and maybe one of them at the end of a trip will get a leak in it. Now with the bags you buy, I get a leak, you know, 19 out of 20 bags. So you really have to do something to protect it. I cannot find thicker plastic bags for that purpose. So yeah, you need to use parchment paper or something to line that bag with.
Yeah, I find when dehydrating, say pasta's a bad one because those things they turn like rock and they're like
Yep.
little swords, right? Like a piece of spaghetti. Actually, they seem to
Yep.
be harder dehydrated than they are when they're before they're cooked. So if you
Yep.
don't break up your
Yeah, I agree.
pasta, right, you have little mountains in there and they're going to pop through. So I find if you crush it up somewhat, it might not be the big spaghetti noodles you could twirl, but it's still going to go down the same way and come out looking differently tomorrow, right? So, uh, yeah. So it's just a matter of taking the care to package it properly. I always use the parchment paper. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Somebody was asking here, Mama Bear's Backpack is asking, how can we tell if a dehydrated meal has gone bad? Are there any signs that you know?
Um, yeah, I would usually the smell. I've had some that I didn't put in the freezer that have been on a shelf for a while, and the smell or the color will be off. Um, and yeah, you'll know.
Hmm. And here's a really good one. And this one I've seen this question asked many, many times before. Not tonight, Pam. You're okay. What's the secret to dehydrating chicken? Chicken is a tough one because it doesn't rehydrate very well, does it?
Yeah, yeah, it has a tendency to be extremely hard when you rehydrate it. Um, so a couple things. I usually pressure cook my chicken first. I'll pressure cook it and then pull it apart with forks. And I won't have a chunk of chicken. I'll have stringy bits of chicken, and those will rehydrate much better. You can use canned chicken as well, chicken that comes in a can because it's essentially already been pressure cooked. When they seal cans, they boil the cans or steam them or something, but they get really, really hot, and that kills the bacteria inside the can. So you've essentially pressure cooked that chicken as well. And I know some people that really slow cook. They'll put them in a slow cooker and cook them for 6 or 8 hours, and the meat becomes really soft and just as if you were pressure cooking it. So, yeah, you don't want to fry a chicken breast and then cut it up or bake it or even boil it. You want to pressure cook it if you can, or do a real slow cook for a long time, and then pull the fibers apart. And chicken, even after all that, it can be a bit tough. So I tend to let it rehydrate a little bit longer, maybe 20, 25 minutes instead of 10 or 15.
Yeah. Yeah. And what aids good in rehydrating are those little pot cozies, right? Something that's going to keep the water. Yeah. Yeah. If you guys out there in the live stream, if you've never made a pot cozy, I know Kevin's got a video on it, I believe. I got a video on it. Learn how to make one, because they are great for both either pots or even bag meals. You could reconstitute your meal right in the vacuum seal bag that it comes in. Cut the top off, pour your water in, fold her up, put her in a sack, and you're good, right? So it's a good way to do it as well. So with all this stuff, with all this dehydrated stuff, you're working on a book. I got in. So I made some dehydrated food videos, and they're fairly popular. I got a good following through that, and I got an email one day from a publishing company. They said they wanted to ask me to write a book for them, and I was pretty flattered. And it was a really interesting kind of a company that they publish books, but they come up with a concept and then they go find the author. This company was all about search engine optimization. So they knew the keywords that would sell a book, and they knew the size that they wanted and the topics they wanted. They've done all the research on that, and they asked me if I would write a book for them. And so we were in the process, and I got I got flattered by that. That was pretty cool, but it was a flat rate to write the book. I didn't really like all of their structure. I had some other ideas, and despite their analytical approach to designing a book, I thought they were missing some key things. So I see Kevin Callan's on the chat there. He's I reached out to him. I said I got this off. I sent him an email. I said never talked to you before, Kevin, but we've got some mutual friends, and I have this offer. What do you think? And he wrote me a big long email describing some of his history with publishing, and really cautioned me against going that route. And couple of his latest books are self-published. So I did some research on that, found a publisher, and just uploaded my manuscript to them a little while ago. So hopefully we'll have a meeting in a few weeks and hammer out a plan for getting that book to market. But hopefully it'll be out this year. And it's going to be about backcountry cooking. Yeah. Yeah, and what all of us would love that for sure. And you obviously gone to a pretty good mentor, because Kevin Callan knows a lot about books. He's got 19 or 20 of them out now, right? So
yeah. So thanks, Kevin, for that. That really set me on course, and it took longer, but I'm much more happy with the way this is going now. It's my product, it's my design, my concepts, and I'm really thrilled about that. Because
it's self-published, is it just going to be a cookbook? Like for dehydrated foods, or do you have any other tips there?
It's going to backcountry camping cookbooks, and I've reached out to backcountry camping recipes, and I've reached out to some other YouTubers to say, hey, would you mind contributing a guest recipe in here? And it'll be sort of a cross promotional thing. I'll send them a book, and if they want to promote that, that's great. If not, that's fine too. So anyone who buys my book will discover their channel, and people on their channel might discover the book, and vice versa. So that's pretty cool. But it's also got sections on how to store your food in bear country, how to select a dehydrator, some of the questions we just covered. What kind of foods dehydrate well, what kind of foods don't, and how to select other ingredients from a grocery store that you might not dehydrate at home, but you can go to the grocery store, buy some Idahoan potatoes or whatever, right? And that's a great substitute. So I got a section on substitute ingredients and stuff like that. So looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. I'm busy trying to find time to take pictures of food for the book.
There you go.
So I've got the text done. I've just got to work on all the pictures.
Maybe I'll get a couple of pictures of my. I'm going away this week coming here, so maybe I'll get a couple of pictures of my shepherd's pie and send it your way.
Right
I
on.
don't even need a credit. I don't even need a credit. Somebody was asking about dehydrating, say, ground chicken. Would that work?
Ground chicken works. So I've started from chunks of chicken. I've cooked ground chicken the way I do ground beef. I boil it, and then that way you drain off a lot of the fat, and then I'll pour boiling water over that again in the colander in the sink to get all the fat out of the meal. So that works, but ground chicken is still hard to rehydrate. It will give it more time, but I find pressure cooking is the best. I keep experimenting because it's still not extremely good. It's good, and I've had it turn out really great on backcountry trips, and still sometimes it doesn't turn out quite as well. So another thing is you don't want to over dehydrate it. You want to get it dry, but you don't want to dry it so it's hard as a rock.
And what's a good determination? Say, for instance, if you're dehydrating ground beef, we all know the stuff turns out like little rocks. Do you try to break up your ground beef so it's as small as you can get it, or do you prefer big chunks?
I try and get it as small as it'll be. Quarter-inch kind of size granules. That works really well. And again, don't over dehydrate beef. You want that beef to be dry to the touch. And usually, I can tell by sound. It'll roll around. It'll have a different gravelly sound, as if you had gravel in a pan. Mm-hmm. And then it's done. If it's dry to the touch, if you break a granule open, it's still dry. If it sounds like gravel, you're done. You don't need to go any further.
You don't want to kill it, right? It's already been there.
Yeah, it'll get super hard. I don't know exactly what happens to it when you dehydrate something. You never get it right down to zero. You get into that 2 to 5% moisture content range, and it's pretty stable. If you go further down, it'll get really, really, really hard.
And what about bringing flavor back into the ground beef? A lot of times when you've cooked and you've rinsed all the fat off, it seems to gravel reconstitute. It doesn't have that same beefy flavor, right?
It doesn't. You're missing that fatty taste because you dehydrate, you drained it all out in the sink or whatever, and it's really missing that. So I usually bring a small bottle of olive oil, and I'll pour 2 tablespoons into a meal, and it's not the beef flavor that you used to have, but it's comparable. It's pretty good. It really brings that meal to life. So I'll either bring olive oil, or I will make some clarified butter and bring that on a trip because that lasts very well as long as you keep it dry. And I'll throw that into something, and those things really make a difference.
Mm-hmm. So everybody, I asked Kevin if we could pre-purchase his book, and he said that they might be doing, what was it? You said a print to order eventually, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know too many of the details, but what I've got myself into is a print on demand system. So the publisher, you order one book, the publisher prints one book and sends it to you. I can't imagine what the computerized printing process they have looks like, but that's how it is apparently. And when I said I was just kind of interested in the soft cover, the guy said, "Well, you can do hardcover or soft cover," and I said, "Well, I just want to do soft cover. Like, who's going to buy a hardcover?" He said, "Well, it's no extra cost. We don't print them until somebody orders them, so that's pretty cool."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I saw you put up Kevin's comment there. That's
seriously, listen to the guy.
Greatly appreciated.
He knows the stuff. Well, yeah, like I say, I'm really into all your dehydrating meals and stuff like that, and it gets you thinking too, just by watching your videos. Like what else can you do to a meal or do its own rendition to make it your own type of thing, right? So that's pretty cool to do that. One tip I have for people. One tip I have for people is don't dehydrate your own onions in your house. Oh my God, you can't get rid of that smell for a week, right?
Yeah, I always saute my onions first, and that helps them. That helps the killer smell.
Yeah.
Shrimp is another one. Dehydrating shrimp. Yeah, your house will smell like shrimp. So
wow, I didn't even know you could dehydrate shrimp.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, any particular type of shrimp, like the canned shrimp or fresh, like fresh
I
cooked?
usually get the because I'm dehydrating. I usually get the pre-cooked stuff.
Mhm.
And I'll get a medium-sized shrimp and cut them into thirds or in half, and throw them into a pad thai
Mhm.
or a chowder or whatever. And yeah, one rule though, and this is scientifically proven: do not bring fish on a fishing trip. You will not catch any.
Really? Why? Go ahead. Explain. Explain. Kevin said you know your stuff.
I
Explain it.
don't know. It just always happens. You bring fish on a trip, and you
Yeah.
if you're not catching fish, somebody brought a can of tuna in their pack somewhere. That's why.
Okay.
I just know the cause and effect. I don't know the theory behind it. Just the cause and effect.
Very good. Very good. So when you go on your little camping excursions there, do you tend to cook for the boys, or is everybody responsible for their own meals?
Usually when I go, I'm usually I'm with my family and I'm doing all the prep or with a couple of select buddies and yeah, they're I will open the floor to them if they want to cook something, but I usually bring the menu.
Hmm.
Um, I'm open to that if somebody wants to bring their own thing, that's cool. But they usually know that I've got some good meals coming, so
Yeah.
people are pretty. My wife says I'll do the dishes, you do the cooking, and that's our deal.
That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
I hope my
yeah.
wife's not listening. Alrighty, so yeah, if anybody wants any, like I'm talking serious good dehydrated recipes, definitely check out Kevin's channel because you got a whole playlist dedicated just to that. So that's something that's good. Now let's get into your how-to videos. You mentioned that you have a background working for the ministry, right? Is it the
Yeah,
ministry? Okay. And so
yeah.
through that there you've actually learned a lot of different things and you got a lot of really good how-to videos, uh, making alcohol burner like beer can alcohol burners and the list goes on and on. What are some of your favorite projects you've done?
Hmm, that's a good question. The bear one right now, I've got a series of bear ones, and those are fun for me. The video, I'm pretty happy with all of those videos. I'm really happy with the luck I had in the last one with the earth sack that I hung in a tree, not too far behind my house, with some sardines in it, and I had different animals coming and trying to get into that bag. Yeah, I've got a pine marten, I've got a lynx, I've got a raccoon, I've got a bear, all tugging at that. So not so much a how-to, but that's kind of entertaining, and it proves those things work to keep animals out of your food.
Now, how long? I watched that and I was amazed that you actually had even a lynx show up. That was like that.
Yeah,
All the other animals, like even the pine marten, maybe but to have a lynx actually show up. How long do you have that bag hanging out there?
I had it hanging. So it took me 2 years to get a bear, which is really weird because there's tons of bears. I see them all the time around my house. Um, I put it way back in the woods for 2 weeks last year, and got a bunch of animals. Did not get a bear. Have no clue why. Maybe they're in my neighbor's garbage or whatever. This year I tried again, and in about a week I picked up the bear. I picked up the lynx, and that was pretty good. So yeah, in about a week you can get most of those things around here. Maybe 2 weeks, but that project took me 2 years actually. A couple weeks last year and a week this year.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting how some of the animals they fooled around with it for a little bit and then they just said, whatever, and they took off, right?
I was really amazed because there's such a reward inside that bag.
Yeah.
I was really amazed that the raccoon gave up so quickly. Uh, it just speaks to the fact that it's spring and there must be food for them to eat in the forest. The flowers are coming out. Animals are eating flowers. Bears are climbing trees to eat flowers. So that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and that pretty gutsy one too, because you're putting to test a piece of gear that's like $130, $140, right? Because earth sacks
Yeah,
aren't cheap. I just ordered one. And I was hoping I was going to have it for this weekend, but it looks like it's going to arrive the day after I get back. So Bummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shouldn't have waited so long to order the darn thing. Are they as good as you or as they told them out to be? Really? Like
I like them. I use them. I think they've got a real good place where you don't have problem bears. If you have problem bears, you need to go to a bear locker or hang your food or something. Um, you got to think about an earth sack or any form of protection for your food. You're not really protecting your food so that you can have it. You're protecting the bear from getting at that food. You don't want the bear to have a reward. Once the bear gets a reward, it's going to develop some negative behaviors and start becoming a menace at campsites and stuff. And eventually, that bear will likely get put down. So it's not about saving your food for tomorrow. It's about keeping the bear away from your food. The problem with an earth sack is a bear can crush your food, and if you have liquid in it, they get a bit of a reward. So maybe they crush an can of olive oil or something, and they lick it and they get a bit of a reward. That bear is going to know. It's going to learn what a food bag is, and it's going to try harder next time. And you create a problem that way. So where you don't have problem bears, if you're going to true backcountry or a trail, a spear hiking trail is close to here, and it's pretty busy, and it's a rural area. Like there's people hunting bears and stuff. So you don't tend to develop those problems. But if you're going to go to Yosemite or one of those places that just has bear problems all the time, a Yellowstone, for instance, you want to, and that's why those parks require you to bring a bear vault of some sort. They don't allow the earth sack in those parks.
Yeah. Ultimately, you still want to try and hang. If you have an earth sack, it's not the excuse not to hang it. You could still hang that just to double guard it, right? I think tying it to a tree is like the last resort. You know, if you don't have a place to hang it, well, you can get by hanging it or tying it to a tree, right? So, yeah. Only hope mine comes in, because where I'm going, I've seen many bears because it's a Crown Land Game Reserve, and I know I've seen all kinds of neat critters up there, and I fully expect to see some this year. It's been a while.
Is that the Chapleau area?
Pardon me?
Are you going to the Chapleau area? Is it the Chapleau?
No, actually heading up just short of Temagami.
Okay. Right on.
So just between North Bay and Temagami, there's a couple little canoe routes I know of up there, and I'm gonna go up there and play. It's gonna be it's gonna be a fun time.
Good stuff.
Yep. So now, what about other types of how-to videos? Are these things that you just think of yourself, or like, you know, you obviously do a lot of research because everything's been done on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I try. Yeah, for sure. I try and do something new if I can, or show it in a new way at least. Yeah, it's tough. Everything's been done, and so when you find a niche, you know, I keep thinking about the bear one because there was quite a niche there. There's more to be done in that theme, and I've got some more ideas along that. I want to do one on I've done like the PCT bear hang. I want to do a 2-tree hang and show that, but also talk about how you hang food when you're in a group and the barrel or whatever is too big to hang in a tree, or if you're someplace where there's no trees, what do you do? So there's a whole area there that I think I'm going to get into soon.
Isn't that where you just pile a bunch of pots and pans on it and keep it away from your camp?
Sometimes, yeah, and it depends on where you are. Again, if you're back in Woodland Caribou or Quetico or Wabakimi or other places, the bears aren't habituated to camping. They are in the front country of Quetico and other places, but once you get in the back country, they're not so cued in on a campsite. And so in those places, it's not too bad. If you go to a very busy place and they don't have bear lockers, you need to maybe bring a bear vault or something and keep the bears from your food.
Mm-hmm. Jeez. So off the topic, what does Kevin's gear corner look like in the basement? Are you neat and organized? Or are you just toss it in the corner and hope you can find it later kind of guy?
I struggle with neatness. I really try. I know that you should take good care of your gear and keep it clean and keep it organized. And for the most part, I've got shelves. I've got clear plastic totes that I put everything in. I am the guy who goes on a trip and comes back and drops it on the ground, and I'll get to that later. And
right.
later is often the week before the next trip. So um, I am not. This is not one of my stronger skills. Is taking care of gear.
Yeah, you know what? Unless you're really a neat freak, it's really tough to keep your gear in good order. Well, not in good order, but neat on the shelves, because you could pick something
Yeah,
up and then you put it down and just for a second and you forget about it. And then you do that with like 10 different things over time before you know it, everything is all over the place, right? And if you could pack it,
yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, it's you got to put a system in place. I've got shelves. I've got a room in my basement. It's just for camping gear. And when we bought a house with an unfinished basement, and this is one of the rooms that I did myself, and so I've got this gear room, and I put a kitchen counter in there to work on, and as a workbench, and I've got a bunch of shelves in the middle of the room, and I've got clear plastic totes. One has got rope. One has got sleeping pads. One has got stuff sacks. One has got stoves. One has got pots. And so there's a bit of structure to it. But of course, I always find a fuel canister in with the ropes or whatever. And anyway, I try and keep it neat. But you put a system in place, and that helps.
Are you a bit of a gearhead like I am? Gotta have it all.
I love gear.
Yeah.
I love gear. Yeah.
That's one of my nemesis.
Yeah. Another theme that I work on, like you say, everyone's done everything, but another theme that comes to mind when you say that is some of my stove videos. I've done a bunch of tests with stoves and fuel efficiency, because a lot of people say, oh, this stove is more efficient than that stove. Why do you bother? Alcohol stoves are better than LPG canisters. Why do you bother? There's a lot of that sort of talk in our community, and I like to test those things, and so I get to scale out, weigh my fuel before and after a burn. A lot of people think that the air temperature is going to affect your boil time, and I discovered through trying it out from I think it was plus 20 to minus 20 and a bunch of points in between, that it really doesn't matter. Once you start that stove, you create a pocket of heat, and that pot of water is going to boil in maybe a second or two less, between 20 and minus 20, but it's going to boil pretty much at the same time regardless. So that's something I thought was interesting. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I would have assumed too it would take longer to boil it in cold conditions. But yeah, have to try that out. Yeah. That's one thing, I never get into the experimental type of videos, right? It's too much work for me to set up. Yeah.
It takes a bit of stuff.
What do you use for camera gear?
It's right. This is my office, so I got my camera right here. This is my main camera right now. It's I bring this on most of my trips. It's a Nikon D5600, and I've got a Rode microphone on it, and I've got a smashed lens here because I dropped it in Woodland Caribou last year. And that's what I do most of my shooting on. I've got a GoPro, got a couple GoPros now. Oh, here's my new one. Yeah, I got a GoPro 8, which I'm excited about. I haven't explored the voice activation yet, but a lot of times I put the camera in a canoe. I'll put it away from me, so I kind of want to get the voice activation going, so I can start it and stop it from a distance without crawling along the canoe and hitting the red button. I also I've also got this is what I use a lot on hiking trips. This is a Fuji XP, not a fancy camera, but it's waterproof and shockproof. So on a rainy day, I'll pull this out and use that. And it's great for backpacking because it's kind of small. So that's sort of my array of gear.
I got to put this up on screen, Kevin. My mom just popped in. Hi, Mom. Hi, Pops. How you doing? Good to see you. They always drift into my show once in a while, a little later on in the show. I always got to say hello, especially during these COVID times, right?
Well, nice to meet you. Nice to meet your parents.
So one thing I've heard about the GoPro 8 with the voice activation, I hear it makes them suck through batteries. So you might want to be aware of that.
GoPros aren't great at batteries to begin with. They don't seem to last very long, but yeah.
I've got just I don't even have a GoPro. I used to have a GoPro Hero 3, and I got rid of that because it was a pig on batteries, and the sound really sucked, and because you had to have them inside the case, right? I've just gone off to like one of these $50 off of Amazon. What do they call them? Sport cameras, right? Just a GoPro knockoff, essentially. And if I ever dropped that thing in the lake, I wouldn't be so heartbroken because it only cost me $50, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not that I want to drop it in into the lake. I was out there shooting a video on the weekend, and I had it all tethered to the boat. So you got to be careful, anyways, right? But yeah,
do all your own things happen on a trip. That's yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you you enjoy the editing process of doing videos?
I do, and I'm really enjoying the concept of how do you begin and work out a video concept. And so I'll before I do a video, I'll write out not a script but a flow to the video. It'll have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and how do I capture the pieces I need to tell the story. And there's a lot to that. I think if I was to start a career again, I might be interested in film, because there's a lot to learn, and a lot to learn about editing. And I think that's what I really like about YouTube, is that there's this whole new area for me to learn and understand. And those things can really set your videos apart from someone else. Again, everyone's done a beer can stove. I did it just for kicks because I wanted to learn how to do it. And I made a video while I was doing it. And but if you take the time to set up your shots and worry about those things, it'll be better. I'm still not thrilled with my all my work, but when you look back at some of the early videos, you go, wow, I was really lacking some skills there. And so, yeah, it's constant improvement, and that's part of what I like about it.
Yeah, you know what? That's the people have to remember, we are amateurs, right? For the most part, and it is what it is. This isn't polished television, so it's the package might be a little broken, but the message is there.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing, right?
And that's what really attracts me to YouTubers. I really like, we mentioned Sean Emery. I really like those YouTubers who they do their own thing. They're running the camera. Those walkaway shots where someone goes a long distance away from their camera, they got to come back for that camera. There's not somebody else there.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of stuff I really enjoy watching others do, and that's the kind of stuff I try and pull off. And yeah, we're amateurs, and that's part of it.
Yeah, it's fun when I do those shots, and I walk the full distance. I come back at the camera. For some reason, I always look at the camera. I go, "Got to come back for the camera." It never makes it to the video, right? But yeah, it's just like I'm talking to people on the other side of it or something. Yeah. So, do you prefer hiking or do you prefer camping? Because I know you do both. Do you have a preference?
I don't. I don't have a preference. I think I like. I guess if I have a slight preference, it's for a longer, deeper canoe trip into the backcountry. That's pleasurable, getting quite far in. But hiking is great too. They're just different activities. Yeah.
So notable. What's your one of your favorite canoe trips that you've done?
A good question. I'm thinking about that.
You're fortunate to begin with, because you're right up there in that country already, right? You don't have to go very far for a lot of really fantastic trips, right? Whereas somebody like myself, living in Southern Ontario, I have to drive 6 hours before I start getting to places that I really enjoy canoeing, right? So. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm only about an hour and a half away from Quetico. I've probably done close to 30 trips in Quetico. It's just handy, and it's a fantastic place to go. I think one of my best trips before my wife and I got married, we did a fly in to Wabakimi, and that was one of our first big trips ever. We did 14 days up there. We flew in and paddled out, and hit some white water that we were not completely prepared for, and we're quite far back. So any mistake would have been a big one. And another one I remember, we did a fly-in trip with the kids when they were young. Woodland Caribou. We flew in, 9-day paddle out, and it was a different kind of a trip. It was a 10-kilometer a day kind of trip. If the kids sleep in the boat, maybe we'll do 15. It was get to camp early, set up, go fishing. More of a leisurely trip because we had kids. We're trying to keep them happy as well. But so that the picture that you put on the thumbnail was from that trip, and I did all the portages with all the gear. And on that portage, I carried my kids as well because the portage was flooded. You'll see if you look carefully in the picture, I'm holding my boots. So that trip was all about dad carries everything, mom takes care of the kids at either end of the portage. Our kids were quite young then, so it was a great trip.
I was going to say, because you said your kids are in their teens, and if I can't see them being in their teens and having to bring them across a portage.
Hiking is almost more of a travel trip. Like if I'm going to go canoeing, I'm not going to go anywhere else other than here, right? Like I might go to Manitoba someday or other places, but like I'm living, one of the best places in the world to live if you like canoeing. Hiking, my best trips are a couple years ago. We did one on the Presidential Range in New Hampshire. I made a video about it. Not a very popular video for some reason, but it was a really great trip. They have huts there, so you hike from hut to hut, and a lot of those mountains in New Hampshire are above tree lines, even though they're not as high as the Rockies. Mount Washington, for example, is well above tree line, and so it's a different environment. Just a really cool place to be. Another great one we did. My wife and I did the Tonkin Valley in Jasper a few years ago, and that was just phenomenal trip. Beautiful country, glaciers, caribou. Fortunately, we didn't see any bears, but just a fantastic place. You think you're in the Lord of the Rings movie when you're in the Tonkin Valley. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. So it sounds like your wife enjoys tripping with you from time to time.
Yeah, we try and get out. Kids have spoiled our tandem tripping patterns, but we try and get out at least once a year now, and go together. Get someone to watch the kids, and we go together.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a regular canoe partner that tends to go on trips with you, though?
I'm starting to get one. My buddy Todd, who went with me last year to Woodland Caribou, he's interested in doing more trips. We had one planned this year before COVID hit. We were going to go do the Kopka. That was going to be a fly-in trip, and we're going to do the whole thing. I've done parts of the Kopka. I've come down from Wabakimi into the Kopka and out, but I haven't been in the headwaters. So I wanted to fly right into the headwaters and come out. So I wanted to see that whole section. That's a beautiful river. The sections I've paddled are fantastic. There's fantastic waterfalls, and there's some further upstream that I haven't seen. So really want to do that. And so Todd is keen on coming with me on a number of trips, and we'll see. COVID has put everything up in the air a little bit. Yes, Crownland camping is back on, but I've got kids and they can't go anywhere. So it's a little unfair if dad takes off for a week or two. I had some big plans this year because I've got tons of vacation. I was going to go do a bunch of big long trips. So now I might do a few shorter trips. I'll test it out. I'm trying to get the kids to go on a trip with us as a whole family. They've been on a lot of camping trips, and they're at the age where they're sort of like, I don't want to do what dad does.
Yeah.
I think they'll come back to it eventually, but right now that's kind of a tough sell. So I'm trying to get them to do like a 3-night trip, someplace easy, and catch some fish and have some fun.
Mm-hmm. So you have a new addition to the family, actually, right? You're one of your last videos?
A 9-year-old.
No, not that one. Not that one. The little red one.
Oh,
yeah.
My family.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah,
when I bring home a new canoe, it's like a new addition to the family, right? You just picked up a new canoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just picked up a new canoe. I have an old. I've got 2 canoes. One is a big Quetico 18.5 boat that we did the family trips in when the kids were younger, and I have an old Swift Algonquin, and it's coming apart. I've had it for more than 20 years, and the gel coat is coming off. It's all, when I rub my hand on it, it's dust. So it was time for a new canoe. I might finish the Swift. I emailed the people at Swift, and they said, "Oh, here's the steps you can do." They were fantastic. So I'm certainly not switching brands. Swift was really, really good to me, and I'll probably refinish that canoe and actually have two boats. But I went with a Souris River this time. They're made in Atacocan. Again, just about 2 hours drive from here. Little town of Atacocan outside of Quetico makes a lot of canoes and a lot of paddles. And so Souris River is the name of the company. It's a Souris River Quetico 16, and it's a really good flatwater boat. It's got about 2 inches of rocker. I paddled their boats before and love them, so I'm sure I'm going to love this one. Yeah.
And what's going to be the maiden voyage for that one?
It might be the Cam River, about 10 minutes drive from here. Maybe on the weekend I'll throw it in there and maybe shoot some film, maybe not, but I'll certainly bring a fishing rod and see if I can find any walleye.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, it's a pretty canoe. I have a couple canoes myself, but anytime you see a new canoe, you kind of get envious, right? It's like, oh,
there's something about it. It's shiny. It'll never be this shiny again. As soon as I launch it, it's going to get scrapes.
Yeah.
It's pristine and it's just beautiful. I got a red one. I've never had a red canoe. I kind of like the greens and darker colors. Red is better for safety, but I figured red was also better for YouTube because it shows up. It creates a bit of a,
And that's a bright red one. I've owned nothing but red canoes in my life. Well, I had one tan colored one years ago, but my most recent canoe that I bought, the Swift one, there's like a, what do they call it? Blue. It's sapphire blue and white or champagne.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just fell in love with the colors, but yeah, I'm typically a red canoe kind of guy too. For me, a canoe has to be red. I get that.
Well, it's the iconic Bill Mason. When I was in Scouts, our leaders showed us all the Bill Mason videos, and that's just the iconic image, right, of a red canoe on the North Shore Superior. That's what you need to have.
Yep. Yeah. No, she's a pretty one. She's going to serve you well. And what's the weight on that?
I think so. It's listed on the website as 42 or 41 pounds. I don't believe that. I think it's lighter. I'm going to try and get a bathroom scale out and put it over my head and see if I can weigh it properly. I don't know, but it doesn't quite.
What the hell's he doing?
Yeah.
That's funny. So what's in the future for Kevin outside outdoors?
Outdoors, yeah.
That, eh?
Well, yeah. Okay. It's okay. It happens to us at a certain age, I think.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I don't know. Certainly want to do a bunch more trips. We'll see this year. Probably won't do the Copco. We'll probably save that for another trip. I really want to try the Steel River out. I haven't done that. I tend to do a lot of flat water paddling. So, I've done a lot of Quetico, and I may go back there, but I kind of want to try other places. Certainly want to try and get into Woodland Caribou again. Just a fantastic spot. Thinking about if I do a hiking trip. The border's closed this year, but we were thinking about going to Isle Royale again. My wife hasn't been out there. It's a big island in Lake Superior. Ferry service from Grand Marais, Minnesota, which is just an hour south of here. The island is a national park, full of moose, no bears, excellent hiking trails. So might want to go try that out again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some ideas.
And what about the channel itself, though? Where do you see the channel in a couple of years' time?
Oh, I don't know. I hope I stay motivated to make videos. I hope I keep growing with my skills and keep coming up with new ideas. Right now, I'm on this kick with the bears. I certainly want to do a whole bunch more bear videos, and I jump from theme to theme. So yeah, I'll probably do more bear stuff, do more stove stuff. Certainly do the food stuff. The food videos take a while, like just how I do them. I cut everything up on camera, and it takes a while to do that. And I've got a noisy household, so if you notice in those videos, I just show my hands doing the work when I'm in the kitchen. I don't talk in the kitchen because there's kids making noise. Okay. I just delete all. So I delete all the audio, and I do a voiceover, and I might put some music with it, and then all the what I call the talking head shots are outside. Because I can get some peace and quiet out there.
Yeah.
So those videos look simple, but there's actually a lot to them compared to some of the other things I do.
Yeah. Have you been? How long have you been on YouTube now?
I think officially 7 years, but like I said, that first year doesn't count because I put up one video, or first 2 years doesn't count. I put up one video and just let it sit there, and I wasn't into it. So yeah, about 5-ish years.
Mm-hmm. And have you been happy with the growth of your channel up until this point?
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't think it was gonna take off. I thought it was a very niche thing. I've had a lot of growth in the last couple months. A lot of subscribers, a lot of views. I did a video a while ago about beavers, and I have a beaver dam just outside my house, and the beavers. We came back from a long vacation. The beavers flooded everything, so I didn't want to trap the beavers, so I dug out the dam. I put some pipes in, and we kept the water level a bit lower. The water level was threatening our septic system, and if they make another dam, we're really in trouble. So I did that, kept them down. I made a video about that. It was something I didn't even think anybody would watch. I just thought I'm going to go do this chore, so I might as well bring the video camera. Made a video, and that one has millions of views. And so, that really took off. And the bear one now is taken off as well. It'll in a couple of years it's got 500,000 now. It'll have millions in a couple of years.
Yeah, you never know what videos will really take off, right? The ones you think are the surefire, man, this one's gonna click for me, and it's like wah wah wah, nothing happens to it, eh? And then it's the one that you expect the least ends up taking off. It's like, why? It makes you wonder why, right?
Yeah,
and you can
so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you could tag and keyword and description and the whole 9 yards, like, and still it doesn't matter, right? It's whatever.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends what's out there and who starts watching. I knew my bear video would get popular. I put a lot of work and a lot of research into it. It sat there, and now the line was flat, and then it just took off like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And one trick I've learned is to make videos in clusters. So I've got, one successful video, make another one about that same theme, and link to it at the end of the video. And so that one will have a lot of traction, and then make another one of the same theme. So I made several beaver videos after that, and I made several bear videos, and I'm gonna try and keep making videos in clusters, I think, of similar themes.
Yeah, ride the gravy train while you can, right? Guess that's one way.
Yeah.
Pam Bookham was asking there, will you be using your new canoe in whitewater?
I probably will. I don't do a lot of whitewater paddling, but there's always a swift between lakes or something. And it's not a whitewater boat, but I'm not too afraid to bring it in light whitewater and or line it down or something like that. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
The Souris River boats are really thin, and they're deceptively flimsy. They're not flimsy. They're made of Kevlar and they're super strong, but they're very, very thin. They're like 5 or 6 sheets of paper thin. And so you think that there's no gel coat on the boat. There's very little reinforcing on the inside. I've banged my other one up quite a bit, and it holds through. It just the first time you use it, you're like, what's going to happen if I hit a rock? Well, the Kevlar will bend and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, building that confidence, right? Because my Swift canoe is the same. Yeah. It's very thin in spots, and I think to myself, how's that thing going to take a good rock hit, right? So I think I'll just until I build my confidence with it, I'll stick with the Novacraft Royal Light, and that thing hits a rock and it just laughs at it, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't take my boat on an exclusively whitewater trip. That's for flat water. Yeah, I would rent or buy a purpose-built boat if I was going to run whitewater all the time.
Mm-hmm. So when you're out on trips, you ever wish you didn't bring the camera? Do you find it gets in the way sometimes?
No. There have been trips where the camera hasn't come out all day. And I've just said, you know what, today's not about filming. Today is about something else.
Mm-hmm.
The camera, though, is kind of a way to keep you occupied, if that makes sense, and kind of focuses your attention on what's going on, because you're always thinking about, okay, is there a story here today? Is it hot? Is it cold? Have we seen some cool wildlife? So you're thinking about the story, but I have had those days where I just didn't feel like filming, and I've got the beginning and end of a trip and not the middle because of it, and I don't regret that at all. I'm not out there to make YouTube. YouTube is the thing that tags on to my other hobby, not the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes you get out there and it's like, am I just making content? Is it interesting content? Makes you wonder whether you should even be shooting. And like I say, sometimes I'll get them days too where you just, you know what, don't have to pull the camera out today. Have it handy. Have it handy in case something does, you see a bear or moose or something.
Have it handy.
But yeah, it doesn't always have to be in the on position.
Yeah.
Unless you're, shooting a series like Mark in the Park or something, but we're not. So, yeah. And that's
they're going out to make things.
Have you watched that series? Have you watched Mark in the Park?
I've watched some of them. Yeah. I saw them on a recent video of yours, a recent show of yours, and so I've, that's what I like about this. I find YouTubers that I didn't know about, and so I'll go check them out if I see them on your show.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever considered doing a collaboration with another YouTuber as far as a trip is concerned?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I certainly have, and certainly open to that. Wade, or Woodswalker 1965, he and I were thinking about doing a hiking trip together this year. COVID sort of put that off. He's a guy I've been communicating with quite a bit lately, and for the last 4 or 5 years, I guess. And seems like a good guy, and we thought we'd do that, but that's off for this year. We'll see about future years.
Yeah, I could attest to Wade. He's a good dude. I've met him a couple times. Actually got him into the winter camping symposium this past year. Had an extra ticket and put it out there, and he goes, "Yeah, I think I'll take that." And it's funny that the show, him and I, we must have kept passing each other at the show until like right towards the end of the show, and then we finally connected. There he is, there in the chat.
Yeah,
so
I see him on my screen as well at the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
Hey, Wade.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time to get them into the chat there so that we can make sure everything gets answered and cleared up. That would be a great thing because I've about exhausted all I have on my cheat sheet here. So,
okay.
Yeah. Future projects for you. Anything in the works as far as new how-to videos coming up? Something, a little sneak peek that we might be able to catch off you?
I really need to focus on the book, so that's going to be my thing. I need to push through and get that done. Like I said, I've got a few in mind. I've got a long list of ideas for videos. I certainly want to do 3 or 4 more bear videos, and related to hang food and bear safety, that kind of stuff. Certainly, trying to think now, what's on my horizon. You get hit up with these. If your channel gets to a certain size, these companies start offering you stuff. So I've kind of figured out my own policy on that, and it's like, well, if you're going to send me 2, or send one to a viewer, I'll do that. I'll review your product. So I've got this battery bank coming. It looks pretty nice. So there'll be a video on that in the future. So yeah, that's going to be my new policy. If you'll send one to one of my viewers as a giveaway, then I'll do something like that. And it's got to be quality gear. It can't be junk. Yeah. So I'm slowly getting into that kind of stuff. I think just trips. I really this year was going to be a bunch of trip videos, and that's still going to happen in some way, shape, or form. Probably shorter trips, probably closer trips because of COVID and the family situation. But towards August, I might try and get out for a longer trip with a buddy. I've been thinking about doing the Steel River, and Todd, we didn't do the Kopka this year, so maybe we'll go do the Steel instead. It might be something to do.
Yeah. You mentioned the COVID thing there, and I noticed a lot of people have always been in some of your later videos been commenting on the beard, on the COVID beard.
Yeah, it's a COVID beard. I often grow a beard for a month or 2, in the winter, and this year it never came off, and I'm not going to the office, and so I thought I'd experiment with a longer beard to see how it's. I've never had one this long, and I probably never will again. But for now, this is the look. We'll we'll see when I or my wife gets.
Yeah, so many of us guys had the COVID look going, right? I had my beard too come off about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and the wife hit me with the shear, the shears, right, to take it off the top too, because I had hair sticking out all over the place, right? So, yeah, you know what? It's kind of nice that they're going to start opening up here, and that we can finally get out. When you hear of Kevin Callan doing canoe trips, you know things are on the right path. So we'll try and get a couple more questions up here before we call it an evening. Matt Hans asking, what's your coolest bear sighting besides the one hanging off your rucksack?
Coolest. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. We've seen a lot of bears in my life. When I was working forestry back in the day, I remember waking up one morning, going to work, and I was tying ribbon for a cut block. So I'm hanging flagging tape that, a couple days later or a week later, the fellow buncher is going to come and follow that and cut the trees. And so I'm following my compass bearing. I'm keeping a straight line. I'm groggy, and I hear a noise, and I don't think much of it. And I think again, oh, that's right behind me. And I turn around, and there was a bear right behind me, nose on the ground, in my last footprint. And it was a small bear. It was probably a yearling or year and a half, and he was following me for like 100 feet as I was walking through the forest, probably right on my heels, and I didn't even notice because I was, groggy in the morning and concentrating on my compass bearing. And I turned around and I yelled, and he huffed and he disappeared just like that. Another memory I have is of a trip with my in-laws. So just meet the parents, and we decide Pine Martin is growing a COVID mullet. Cool. The parents come to town. The in-laws, we're not married yet, but we've been together for a while, been living together for a while. And just to meet the parents, they want to go camping, and they want to go camping in Quetico. And my wife's mother has a sore arm. And so she wants to go for a short trip, not very deep. And back in the day, just south of Atikokan, there's an entry point called Nim Lake, and that used to be Bear Alley. That you would go to the park and you would see a sign saying, bears have been here and harassing campers. And they were pretty intelligent. They started stealing food at the ends of portages and stuff. And so I called it Bear Alley, and the advice was always to paddle through that area and get out. Well, so my wife's mother, she's not doing so great with her arm. She wants to go for a short trip. The only entry point that's open for us was Nim Lake. So here we are camping in Bear Alley. First night we heard a bear down the lake at another campsite. People are banging pots and pans, and I know better. I knew to move on and go somewhere else, but that wasn't really an option for us. And so sure enough, that night we had Mama Bear come and raid our campsite. I woke up, she was fighting with her dog. We had a big husky at the time who's a pretty competent dog, and he had a tussle with the bear. I got up, grabbed the axe, went and saw the bear climb the tree. Their food is hanging in. And this bear climbed the tree and then reached over, stuck her claws in the trunk of the tree, reached over, and she grabbed the bear bag. And then she got her claws into the bear bag, and she hung on that bear bag with two hands in the air, 20 feet in the air, until that branch broke and brought the food bag down. So we spent a night she would challenge us, we would challenge the bear. I'd never used bear spray before. My mother-in-law had a very small can of bear spray. They used to come in smaller cans. So I had that in the axe, and I wasn't sure what to do. And so she gave us a bunch of fake charges. Eventually we decided to sort of let her take the food bag and go off. So she was pulling the food bag. It was pulling on the rope, and we decided to cut the rope just to let her have it and go off. So she took it for a while. She disappeared for a while. We made a fire and kind of felt at ease. And then I heard some noises in the tree. right beside where the dog got in the fight with the bear. Shone the flashlight up, and there's 2 cubs in the tree right above our tent.
No kidding.
And so Mama Bear wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, Mama Bear wasn't going anywhere at all until she had her cubs. So we backed up, and this funny campsite, we're on this very narrow point, and there's a bit of a cliff on one side of the point, and we're backing up all the way to the cliff to give the mother some space to get her cubs. I think if we had 10 more feet of space, she would have got her cubs, but she didn't feel comfortable. We couldn't give her enough space. Nobody felt comfortable just going off into the woods because we're on a peninsula, so that's the way she's got to go too.
Mm-hmm.
So it got kind of complicated. This is the part that many people won't believe, but we started turning our flashlights off because the batteries were going dim, and every time she challenged, we'd shine, we'd find her with her flashlights, we'd see her eyes, we'd all yell and wave our arms, and she'd back off. And then our batteries started going dead. So I said, we got to change the equation here. Like this is a standoff. We're not going to win because eventually the flashlights won't work, and she's gonna be more brave. So I grabbed the axe and I cut down the tree with the cubs in it. Very small peninsula, like I said. The tree splashed in the water. The cubs swam away. Mama came and got the cubs, swam away. And that is probably my best bear story ever.
Wow, that could have had a much
in
worse
the morning.
Oh,
it could have been worse. It could have been much worse. In the morning, we saw the mother, we saw the 2 cubs, and we saw a 3rd cub. She had kept a cub from the previous year.
Yeah.
And so she had a 3rd larger cub that she was probably suckling. So she was a big bear, but when you saw her in the morning, you saw how flappy her belly was. Like she was a hungry bear, probably because she was nursing 3 cubs, one of them a yearling, and she was pretty desperate for food and knew how to get a food bag out of a tree.
Wow, that there alone would have been really cool to see the bear just hanging there, right? Yeah, they can get pretty acrobatic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, we had that out. You can never find the perfect tree, and I certainly want to do a video about that. But we had the food out pretty far, but she sort of lunged and jumped and caught it and hung on, and eventually it broke, and she came down with it. She didn't care how high it was, and yeah.
And how far were you into the trip, having lost all your food?
Well, actually, we got most of it back the next morning. Found the pack, got the food back. It was only going to be like a 2 or 3 nighter, and so I think we were on our last night anyway. So we weren't very far in. It was a very short trip. It was really a front country trip, and that part of Quetico doesn't have that kind of bear problems anymore. But for some reason, I think there's a spot really, really close to the border of the park there. In one spot, the border is only like 500 meters away, and there's logging roads in. And I have a feeling that in that period of time, there's about 5 or 10 years where that, I call it Bear Alley. I think somebody may have been bear baiting just outside of the park right there, and may have created some bad behaviors that the park inherited. So that's my theory. I'll never know for sure, but that's my theory. I've never seen that kind of a problem recently. So
yeah. Seeing some comments in here. Pam Booker says that's some story. Yikes! That's insane. That's an intense one. That's for sure.
Yeah,
wow.
We gave my parents-in-law a fig that year.
Yeah. I'll throw a couple more questions up here. Nate Muskoka is asking, canoe paddles, what's your favorite and how do you pick your length?
Yeah, so I did a video of a guy. I won a paddle this year. I think January, February. I won a paddle, a young channel, Joe O'Blennis. Joe O's paddles. He makes paddles here in Thunder Bay. I didn't know him. He had a contest. He had a very small channel, so my odds were pretty good at the time. I think he had like 200 or 300 viewers, subscribers at the time, and I won a paddle. And so one of the things I did when and he's done some amazing paddling trips. He's gone across the country, and he's circumnavigated Vancouver Island. He had the speed record for that once. He did that in a sea kayak. So he's a pretty serious paddler. and he makes paddles. And so I asked him how to do it, and he sat me down and showed me a method. But I like the just hold your arms square. Does it feel right? If your arms are square, elbows square, hand on the handle. I'll back up a bit. Hand on the handle, and the other hand just by the neck, and that works pretty well. So that's how I size them. I've used all kinds of different paddles. I've used bench shaft. There was a period when I was in university, I thought short bench shaft fat paddles are the way to go. Now I like a nice long otter tail, deep in the water paddle. That's what I like now, and that's what I prefer.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried double blade?
I have. Yeah, I have. I like to paddle a paddle.
Yep.
I just bought a boat. I thought about getting a solo boat. I go tandem quite a bit, so I don't want to get a solo boat. But yeah, I know people that do it. I don't have anything against it, but I prefer to paddle traditionally, and use those strokes.
It's funny because I mentioned I was out this past weekend on the Welland Recreational Canal, and I wanted to test out a few different paddles, like single blades, because I with my Swift pack boat, I'm using a double blade, right, kayak paddle, and I
Yep.
wanted to test single blades with different lengths because I got several paddles, and I just wanted to see which one was going to be most comfortable for me. And it's obviously considerably shorter than my standard paddle that I'd use in my tandem canoe. But I was out there paddling, and it's like it was so nice just to be pushing that canoe with a single blade too, right? And it actually controlled quite nicely considering the way the canoe is actually built. So I found my backup.
There's a satisfaction to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a real satisfaction to it, and that's part of it. You see different styles. We get a lot of Americans up here with and often they have a style. It's the Winona canoe with tractor seats, and they're doing the hut stroke, and they're going a million miles an hour across the lake. That's one way to travel. Double blade is one way to travel. I like just the single blade, tandem or solo, and that's a style I like.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that. Kevin Callan would agree with that too. Single blade for that boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Cool. Anyways, you know what? I'm not seeing any more questions. And anything else you'd like to add? You have any other stories that would be another wow story for us?
Oh, that was the good one. That was
that was
my
the good one,
wow
eh?
story.
Wow.
Yeah, I try not to get myself in trouble in the backcountry. I guess one thinking about trips. I remember on our Wabakimi trip, we were younger. Not we researched the trip. We saw portages on the trail, and we got to a part of the Agoki River where we could not find portages, and it was pretty challenging. The water was too busy to run. One place I tried to line the boat and lost all our gear. Lined the boat, was going pretty good. The boat twisted in the current. All the stuff floated away. I don't tie my stuff to the boat for that reason. It's certainly not in a river. And anyway, I recovered the canoe, no problem, and we recovered our stuff. It just floated downstream. We got it out the next time. On that same trip, on I guess that was the Allenwater River where that happened. On the Agoki River, similar thing. We couldn't find the portage, and the river opened up wide. And normally, when it gets wider, it's shallower, but this section was still pretty fast and pretty wide. We ran a few rapids, no problem, and we saw a canoe wrapped around a rock, and we thought, wow, like this cannot happen to us. And the rapids were getting more aggressive, and so we ditched on an island. We could not find portages on the island or on either side. We ferried over and looked and couldn't find anything that they were supposed to be there. They weren't. It was also a year after a really bad blowdown, and so I remember like swimming with my boat. I put the life jacket on and my wife bushwhacked through the island, and I jumped in the water and held the back of the boat and went down the rapids, foot on a rock, controlling the boat. And it works. It's I would call it a technique.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It'll get you through. And when you think back to some of those Bill Mason movies, how often was he swimming with his boat, doing crazy stuff like that? That's not for me now. I'm a little older, but that was a highlight of that trip for sure.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, you know what? You do what you got to do to get to the other side, right? And
yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Where did I see that? Sorry, I was smirking through your story there because Pine Martin and Kevin Callan always got this thing going back and forth, right? Kevin Callan likes a single blade because a double blade paddle confuses him. It's just too complicated for him. I don't know if Kevin's still in the chat to defend himself, but that's a good one, Pine. That's all right. Anyways, I guess with that being said, we'll probably call this to an end. Unless you want to answer this question for me. What's the absolute worst experience you've ever had on a trip? And we'll close the show off with that.
Worst experience? Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. I think you're asking me what's the worst experience
on a trip. What's the worst experience you ever had on a trip? Did you lose me again?
I gotta think about it. My worst trip. I don't think I've had a bad trip. I think it's really important you go with people and have some sort of relationship with, because that cause the bad trip to happen. I've heard some horror stories about parties splitting up and stuff, but I don't recollect a bad trip. I recollect a few negative setbacks. And again, I try and keep myself out of those tremendous situations. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good. You know what? Because out in the backcountry, you always make the best of a bad situation, right? Or you try to anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. And you try to, I've had bad weather. I've had, okay, I remember one now. Quetico again. I was young again. There was 8 of us on the trip, and wasn't such a bad trip overall. But a storm came in, and me and my buddy, we took our 2 boats, and we saw the storm coming. A real dark green, dark purple cloud. It's going to be bad, and we put our boats in the trees, and the other 2 groups, the 4 people that were with us, were sort of loose friends that we sort of knew, and they decided to prop their boats up and put a tarp across them and watch the storm come in, which was kind of fun for a while. But once the winds hit that tarp and those canoes went airborne, and so that's something I've learned is, they went airborne. They went in the lake. They floated away. It was a storm, so we were not able to go look for those boats till the next morning, because no one was going out in the storm for sure. So they lost their 2 boats for 14 hours or whatever, and we eventually found them and brought them back. But that's something you want to avoid.
There's a sticking feeling.
Tie your boat every time, and I don't know how they would have felt or what they would have done if they were the only 2 boats in the party. We had 4 boats and able to find their boats, but yeah,
it's like because had you not had the other boats, who's a good swimmer in the group, right? Anyways,
you
wow. Anyways, you know what? Good night. Just want to we'll get into some closing statements here, and we'll close this up. Is Wade still in the chat by any chance? If you are, Wade, just put something in. If you're in, I want to get you into the back room here or there for after the show if you have a few minutes, and we'll go with that. But anyways, let's see here. Just want to remind everybody that next week I will not have a show or be having a show because I will be up north canoeing myself. So don't bother tuning in next week. There's a lot of other cool things you can watch on YouTube. But we will be back on the 23rd, and it will be our season finale for season 1. And we're going to be taking the summer off basically until about September when we're going to get things going. But in that time, I'll be working on some really great guests for, I guess you could call it the 2021 season. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you hit that subscribe button for Canoe Hound Adventures. But more importantly, get over there and check out Kevin's channel. The link is in the description below, so you can get over there and check out his videos, man. You're going to be very impressed with all the recipes and the how-tos and all his other videos that he's got on there. I know that's why I'm a fan. You got some great content, Kevin. Thanks very much for sharing that with everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's
on the 23rd, I will be doing a rather big swag giveaway. Going to be giving away some T-shirts, some T-shirts. Be giving away some hats, some Canoe Hound Adventure decals. And the way you can win is if you become a Canoe Hound Adventures member by hitting that join button down below and take advantage of some of the perks that we have going. It's a great way to support the channel and possibly win some swag in the end, right? So check that out. There's no obligation to do it, but please do check it out. You never know if it's something that you're interested in. What else do we got here? I think that's going to be about it. So once again, Kevin, thanks very much for being a guest tonight. I enjoyed your stories, especially that bear story. You should do a round the campfire thing with that bear story and
thanks
on that one, right?
I've been thinking about doing a video on just that. Yeah.
Yep. So
thanks for having me. It's been great. It's been a pleasure. And
yeah, no, thanks. Like I say, thanks for coming on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. We got, if everybody hasn't noticed tonight, there's a lag between Kevin and I. So I ask a question. It takes him a couple seconds to get through his internet over to his end. So that's why we kind of look at each other the odd time, wondering what's going on, who's going to talk next, right? So, yeah, that is about it. Anyways, everybody, please stay safe through this COVID thing. If you're getting out and enjoying the great outdoors, do it responsibly. Make sure to put out your fires too. That's going to be something that's going to start becoming a problem soon too, or the forest fires and things like that. So be responsible campers. Douse your fires all the way out. Have a great time out there on your camping trips, and take care. Until next time, I'm Dennis from Canoe Hound Adventures saying, remember people, keep the adventures alive. Thanks again, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.